Happy Sunday, everyone. Last week, I shared about the Olympic spirit to commemorate the conclusion of the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. And this week happens to be the annual Blessed Cultural Sports Fest, which is a hub for unificationists and their friends to connect and celebrate the values of our community through sports and culture. So today, I wanted to talk about how we can play the sport of life well. I'd like you to think about what kind of sports have you played in your life? And what did you enjoy about it? What did you learn? And most importantly, how has sports affected your life? You know, there's so many things that we can learn from playing sports. In high school, as many of you know, I ran cross country, and one thing I really loved about it was just being able to run outdoors, not think about anything else. And there's just this kind of moment of peace and focus while running or training for cross country. There was one time I was preparing for a final meet, and I remember practicing on my own, getting up early, going to the highest hill I could find in Queens, New York, that I could run to. And I remember sprinting uphill over and over again. And this wasn't something that was prescribed by my coach. It was just something that I decided I wanted some extra training and preparation for my final meet. And it was tough. I remember sometimes thinking to myself, I didn't even know if this was going to make any difference on my final time or how well I do. And it was a lot of effort to get up early and kind of go through that. But anyway, I did that. And I remember in my run, it felt really tough for that final meet. And I really didn't know how well I did when I finished, but it turned out to be my personal record, and it was the best time for the 5K run. So through cross country, I learned dedication, this kind of perseverance. And I think that you can apply that same concept in work and in my relationships. Many times we put in a lot of effort that no one knows about. And if we were to apply this to our life of faith, it's kind of like the concept of offering jeongseong, or this kind of investment of filial heart and devotion, without knowing if there's anything that's coming back in return, but you just invest. And that's the kind of thing that, I was able to also gain through cross country. And I feel that's important, that you can gain from other sports as well, that you can apply to your life. Let's look at what the Bible has to say about this topic. This is in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 25 through 27. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we do it to receive an imperishable one. So I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air, but I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. So in the Bible, it talks about athletics and self-discipline. This actually reminds me of another sport that I loved, which was in college, I did Taekwondo. And I know I've shared a few stories already about this, but one memory that I have was getting into a sparring match. And I don't know, for those who don't know, in Taekwondo, at least in competitive sparring, for my level, it was 2 rounds of 2 minutes. And 2 minutes might seem very short, but it is exhausting when you're fighting full out in a sparring match. It's kind of like sprinting the whole time, but you're literally kicking and being kicked, So anyway, I was sparring, and I remember that it was like the last 15 seconds of the round. I've been, moving and kicking and receiving kicks the whole time, pretty much exhausted. But being trained, I remember to really kiap, which is like yelling at the top of my lungs, and then I remember my opponent was looked a little intimidated, but that got me the energy to refocus. Even though my body was completely spent, I was able to refocus the energy in those final seconds. So through that experience in Taekwondo, I learned the power of being able to overcome my physical limitation through focusing my spirit and my energy. And I feel like this is the same in life. You can really, even though you might be exhausted, if you're able to find a way to re-engage your spirit and your intention and your will, you can actually regain the energy even if you feel like you're at your physical limit. Let's read a passage from Father Moon on this topic. I adopted for myself the motto, before seeking to dominate the universe, first perfect your ability to dominate yourself. This means that to have the strength to save the nation and save the world, I first had to train my own body. I trained myself through prayer and meditation and through sports and exercise programs. As a result, I would not be swayed by hunger or any other emotion or desire of the physical body. So this was from his autobiography as a peace-loving global citizen. Yeah, so that's one of my favorite passages or quotes from Father Moon, is that before I master the universe, I must master myself. One new kind of sports that is gaining popularity these days is esports. You may not think that it's a real sport, but it actually takes a similar kind of effort and discipline that it takes doing a regular sport. In fact, I remember watching a documentary, and they were saying in the documentary that people who are serious about esports, they spend more time training and practicing than regular athletes do for their sports. So one memory related to this was in freshman year in college, I came across a game. They weren't called esports back then, but it was a first-person shooter game called Quake, and it was online. And, I've pulled different all-nighters studying before, but this was the first time I pulled an all-nighter playing video games. There was such an adrenaline rush, and I remember just keeping on playing and playing, and I became like the top 50 on a server of about 10,000 players. It was so crazy. People were starting to ask about joining my clan, and I don't know, something about video games is really fun for me. I think part of it is that there's clear rules. And the most exciting part is that you can see your own progress on a regular basis. You increase your stats, you get better weapons, and as you win, you increase your rank. So it's a lot of fun, but the problem is it takes a lot of time, and you spend a lot of time developing yourself in the virtual world, many times at the expense of the real world. So I remember I've been on and off with gaming, and I have a love-hate relationship with it because I can't play it leisurely. Like once I start a game, I have to beat it. That's kind of my nature. So I remember on my 40th birthday, I decided to quit gaming cold turkey. And instead, I decided to gamify my life through a wiser goal-setting system. So I applied a lot of the things that I like about gaming, and I put it into my life system, management system. And it really added an element of fun and development, of tracking progress on a daily basis. And instead of developing my rank and improving my stats virtually, I found myself improving dramatically in my own personal life, in the areas of finance, my mission work, and even my relationship with my wife. So there's some key points about playing the game of life that are very useful to know and apply. So I'd like to share some of the things that I found um, to help you guys. So let's read from the Bible. I didn't think I could find some quotes about sports, but the Bible says an athlete is not crowned unless he competes according to the rules. This is 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 5. So key points, in order to win, you got to play by the rules. Let's also read another passage from Father Moon about this. Sports employ rules to ensure fair competition. Fair play is considered the most important aspect of the game. It requires obeying laws and following the rules. Breaking the rules and committing fouls result in the loss of points, expulsion from the game, and the eventual loss of the privilege of participation. So the first key point in playing the game of life is to learn the rules of the game. So what is the purpose of the game of life? Good question, right? Fortunately for us, we have the divine principle, which is a text that explains our core teachings in our community, and it has a pretty comprehensive perspective on the rules of life. So let's read a passage from the divine principle. These are the three great blessings: to be fruitful, which means to mature and ready to bear fruit, multiply, and have dominion over the creation. Had Adam and Eve obeyed this divine mandate and built the kingdom of heaven, there is no doubt that God would have felt the greatest joy as his sons and daughters rejoiced in the world of his ideal. The ultimate purpose of the universe, with human beings at its center, is to return joy to God. So according to the exposition of the divine principle, the purpose of life is to experience joy with God. And the framework of life, as outlined here, is to pursue the three great blessings. Again, the first is to mature oneself as an individual. And when we say mature, it means about really becoming one in heart with God and with love. And the second is to multiply, which means to build that love relationship, not just with God, but with your eternal husband or wife, and create a family, right? And then the third step is to have dominion over all creation, which means that we, on the foundation of a harmonious relationship with God, with your family, is to have that same kind of harmonious relationship over all things, and to master your area of expertise to be a contribution to the world. So by knowing these basic rules of the game of life, we can play intentionally and play well rather than randomly or kind of by trial and error. You know, there's this common concept of YOLO, which stands for you only live once. And it typically means that, you know, you need to be free flowing, just go with the flow. Whatever you want to do, just do it now because you only live once. The problem with that mindset is that it's all tends to be very short-term thinking. And you might feel satisfied or, you know, fulfill your desires in a short term, but many times it comes at the expense of your future. I like to elevate this concept of YOLO. You know, our understanding of YOLO, or you only live once, is that you live once on earth, only once on earth, and you live eternally in the spirit realm based on how you lived on earth. So it's really important, because we only live once, that we live it well. So we talked about, you know, how to what we can learn from sports that we can apply to our life and how to play the game of life. And we shared some basic rules, but now I want to go into how do we win in the sport of life? Because in any game, it's really important to know how to win. And that's part of the purpose, is to know how to win the game. So it's fine to play, but it's better to win. So let's turn to the author of the game of life, which is God. The better that we understand how God designed the game of life, the better chance we have at winning at that game of life. So let's read a few passages. God created human beings as the final step in creating the universe. He created them in his image, in the likeness of his internal nature and external form, and gave them sensibility to all feelings and emotions because it was his intention to share joy with them. This is a really beautiful passage. It's basically saying that, human beings were the final creation. After God created everything else, it was almost like, when a parent prepares the whole environment for their children. You buy the crib, you buy all the clothes, you make everything baby proof, and then finally that's in preparation for your child. Similarly, God created all the universe, the earth, the moon, the stars, the animals, the birds, everything in preparation for human beings. And he also God created human in his image. That's like the highest compliment, like we were created in the image of God, in likeness, in nature and form. So really, we are the best of God's creation. But more deeply is that God gave us the same feelings, sensibilities, emotions, because God wanted to experience those feelings with us and through us. So really, from this passage, I get that God as a parent wants us to grow and feels love and joy through us. He also feels all the pain and the disappointment that we experience naturally in life as well. So it's important to know that regardless of what we're going through in life, that God is with us. God is with you all the time, feeling every emotion, every pain, every suffering, every joy, every laughter. God is experiencing it together with you. Let's read another passage here. The whole purpose of life here on earth is to learn how to love. You should love your parents, your children, and your spouse with the intensity of pure first love. That will bring total fulfillment to you and to your environment. The value of such love goes beyond any amount of money or any other thing. When God sees such a loving scene, he will bow down his own head in thanks. So this passage really speaks out to me that we should know the goal of life is not money, it's not power, it's not fame, but simply to love and be loved. I mentioned this earlier, but really every moment, both the good times and the bad, can all have meaning if you see it as an opportunity to grow your capacity to love. In all relationships, there's challenges and there's ups and downs. But if you see those challenges as a chance to grow more, to challenge yourself more in your ability to love people, even those that betrayed you, even those that hurt you, that you can forgive and that you can continue to love. That's the point. And if we can all strive to do that, then we can really get how to play this game of life. Finally, this is a passage from Mother Moon. The real purpose of life is to walk forward on the road of true love. We are to grow through harmonious relationships of true love. we have to carefully maintain the idea of true love in our hearts. So the one main point I get from this passage is that how we grow our capacity to love is through practicing creating harmony in all of your relationships. So, whether that be with your parents, with your spouse, with your children, with your friends, with your siblings, all of these relationships with your neighbors, your boss, they're an opportunity to grow and practice loving and practice creating harmony. And when you get that this is the main point in the game of life, then again, you'll find so much meaning and fulfillment in life. So I'd like to get into the secret to winning the sport of life. So what is the secret to winning the sport of life? We talked about the sport of life or the game of life being all about loving and being loved, but what's the secret at being able to do that? Let's read. Similar to a manager who sees things that the players cannot see and gives signals, God sees things that we cannot see and gives us signs. If the players follow the manager's signs well, they will almost always win. But if the manager sends signs and foolish players either don't understand them or ignore them and play according to their own thinking, the team can only lose. Wow. So if you want to win at the game of life, then learn to listen to your manager, God. This is an ongoing challenge, and something we all need to learn is as we grow in our life of faith, is whenever something happens in your life, before just reacting to the situation, ask, what is it that God may want me to learn from this experience? It's not just circumstance, it's beyond just coincidence, but simply take a moment to ask, assuming that God wants the best for me, assuming that God loves me, why is it that God has me experience this at this time in my life? If you do that, you will find some profound lessons that will help you to overcome not only that challenge, but see that challenge as really a gift from God, a personalized gift for the sake of helping you continue to grow your heart and your love. So in conclusion, there's many things that we can learn from playing sports that we can apply in our lives. Among these lessons include perseverance, self-mastery, and joy. I believe that God designed life to be lived in love, for the purpose of joy, to love and be loved. And sports can teach us important lessons to help us love. For example, to love requires discipline. To love requires mastery. And to love requires joy. Let us continue to learn to play this sport of life and play it well by seeking guidance from the designer of the game and our lifelong manager, God, our Heavenly Parent. Thank you. May God bless you and your family this week. Enjoy, and we'll see you again next time.